Tanner Miles didn't believe in aliens. He believed in late rent, broken vending machines, and discount synth coffee that tasted like charred regret. But everything changed the day he stepped into the remote research compound known as the Cyrillian Convergence. Subject 9 Kappa. A voice called crisply as he entered the atrium. A woman stood waiting. Or rather, something like a woman. She had the build of a dancer and the stance of a soldier. Slender but strong, with digitigrade legs clad in sleek black synthweave boots. Her fur was a rich, warm orange, and her vulpine tail, thick and elegant, moved with a fluid kind of grace that didn't belong in a lab. Her eyes were sharp, cunning, almost, and burned gold under the soft interior lighting. "You're late," she said. Tanner blinked, trying to recalibrate his entire understanding of reality. "Yeah, traffic was brutal," he said with a crooked smile. She didn't blink. "Follow me." He obeyed, more out of confusion than compliance. As they walked down the corridor, she introduced herself without turning. "My designation is Viral. I lead all human interspecies cognitive integration trials within the Convergence." "That's supposed to impress me?" "It's supposed to make you listen." Tanner didn't answer. He noticed the way her tail flicked when she was annoyed. Or maybe it was intentional. It swayed with a purpose that made him suspicious and curious. She led him into a suite that looked part hotel, part operating room. A panoramic wall projection displayed rolling green meadows, simulated, of course. Probably to ease the transition. Or so the protocol went. "You'll be housed here," Viral said. "Neural guidance will deliver instructions tomorrow. Do not leave without escort." Tanner looked around. No bars. No restraints. Just the faint hum of invisible surveillance. "You call this freedom?" She turned to him, her eyes unreadable. "I call it controlled opportunity." He raised an eyebrow. "You always this friendly with your test subjects?" Viral's tail flicked once. "You're not a subject, Mr. Miles. You're a variable. Whether you survive the equation is up to you." The door hissed shut behind Viral, and Tanner was left alone with the artificial serenity of projected forests and chemical sterilized air. He scanned the room again, too comfortable. Too intentional. The bed was memory foam, the walls soft beige. Soothing. The illusion of peace. But peace didn't come easy to a guy like him. He lay down but didn't sleep. Not because he wasn't tired, but because the stillness in that room had teeth. It watched him. Judged him. Measured his breath. He wasn't sure if the soft buzz behind the walls was machinery, or his own rising paranoia. At some point, the projection shifted, sunset over mountains now. Digital nostalgia. Manufactured Earth. He missed the noise of real people. The chaos of markets and scrapyards. Even the drunk guy who used to scream at vending bots back in Sector 12. But more than anything, he kept thinking about her. Viral. That voice, that precision. The way she looked at him, not like a man, not even like a problem to solve, but like a file to dissect. She wasn't human. No way in hell. But she wasn't some gelatinous horror from deep space either. She was something else. Beautiful. Terrifying. And very, very controlled. He smirked to himself. Vulpine vixen in charge of brain-melting experiments. What could go wrong? At 0600, the wall flashed crimson for a moment before fading to neutral. A chime echoed in his skull. Subject 9 Kappa. Report to Chamber A3. Compliance required. He sat up, rubbing the back of his neck. No breakfast first? Classy. The door slid open before he touched it. Viral stood outside, arms folded, tail flicking in that ever-rhythmic sway. This time, she wore a longer coat over her black tech suit, the fabric flowing like liquid over her frame. Stan, she said. He stood. Come. You always order guys around like this? Tanner asked, falling into step beside her. I'm not interested in your comfort level, Mr. Miles. Only your performance. I'm great under pressure, he said with a grin. Then let's see how you handle being touched. He blinked. What? Viral didn't elaborate. She led him through a hall of blinking panels, silent observation rooms, and 2 clean glass walls behind which he glimpsed other humans, motionless, expressionless, some half-naked, others hooked into diagnostic webs. They reached a chamber marked Sensory Integration Tier 2. She stepped inside first. It looked like a spa, and a surgical theater had a very uncomfortable child. In the center stood a cushioned recliner beside a series of neuroreaders and biometric coils. "You'll lie down," she said. Tanner raised an eyebrow. "Are you gonna buy me dinner first?" Viral didn't flinch. "No. But I will be touching you." He stopped grinning. Tanner hesitated in the doorway, watching the biometric coils pulse faintly. "You always make the first move, or am I just lucky?" Viral stepped to the side, tapping on a narrow tablet affixed to her forearm. "Baseline data collection requires 0 stimulation. Physical contact is a necessity. Remove your shirt and footwear." He raised an eyebrow. "You're not even gonna turn around? Little privacy, maybe? You have nothing I haven't seen. Efficiency matters." "Right," he muttered, tugging his faded jacket off and dropping it beside the chair. "Nothing like being objectified by a foxgirl in a lab coat to boost your self-esteem." He peeled off his shirt and boots, then settled into the recliner. The synthetic material molded to his body instantly, unnervingly warm. Viral approached, her orange fur catching the chamber light like flame. She carried a small diagnostic wand and positioned herself beside him. "Do not speak unless spoken to." "I like our chats," he said, grinning up at her. She ignored that. The wand emitted a low hum as she moved it across his chest, shoulders, and throat. Her proximity was enough to raise every hair on his body, and not from fear. It was the smell. Clean but earthy. Something wild barely tamed under the antiseptic scent of her uniform. "Pulse elevated," she noted. "You think?" She leaned in closer, hovering the device over his sternum. Her tail curled slightly around one thigh as she adjusted her stance, unbothered by how close she was. Tanner didn't move, but his breath quickened. Viral noticed. Her golden eyes narrowed. She reached out, just her fingers this time, and placed them gently on his ribcage. The reaction was instant. His heartbeat spiked. A soft tone from the console confirmed it. She blinked once. "Unexpected. I do my best to surprise." Viral's gloved fingers trailed slightly lower as she affixed a flat, translucent sensor to his side. The heat from her hand lingered. She stepped back and studied the monitor. "Hormonal pattern variance. Neural latency reduced. Cortisol remains low." "You make me comfortable," Tanner said, voice low. "No. I make you alert." He chuckled. "You sure that's what your data says?" She didn't reply. Instead, she touched a final control, and a soft mechanical arm lowered over his temple. Lights danced over his skull, scanning. Then the screen flickered. "Neural mirror initiated," the console announced. Tanner squinted. "That's new." Viral stiffened. The screen shifted rapidly, overlaying 2 brainwave patterns. One was his. The other was hers. And they were beginning to sync. The chamber was quiet, but not calm. Tanner's eyes flicked between the twin sets of neural data glowing on the wall. The waveforms were pulsing in tandem now, converging at points too specific to be random. Viral's posture shifted slightly, but she didn't speak. "What's happening?" he asked. Her reply was flat. "Cortical harmonization." "In English? Our brains are syncing. Yours and mine." He blinked, then laughed. "Didn't know I was that charming. This is not a joke." "Then maybe explain why your skin looks like it's dancing with mine." Viral's tail twitched. It was the only outward sign that anything was bothering her. She leaned toward the monitor, her sharp eyes scanning every flicker of data, every spike, every mirrored arc. "Synchronicity at this level shouldn't occur without prolonged exposure," she said, almost to herself. There hasn't been enough contact. No emotional tether, no biochemical bonding protocol initiated. I didn't sign up for emotional tethering, Tanner said, sitting up. I signed up for food and a paycheck. Lie down, she snapped. But he didn't. You're reacting too, aren't you? Viral stepped back, as if distance would re-establish control. This session is over. You sure? He asked, standing. Because that screen says otherwise. She looked up sharply. Her eyes weren't just analytical now. They were searching. Defensive. And behind them, buried under the scientific discipline and command, was something that looked dangerously like doubt. You think I'm contaminating your test? He asked. You are, she said. Or maybe the test was already contaminated the moment you touched me. Viral's expression froze. Tanner stepped forward slowly. You felt it. I know you did. She said nothing. Her arms folded over her chest, but it wasn't the defiant pose of a commander anymore. It was protective. Guarded. Tell me I'm wrong, he said softly. Silence. Then finally, with a voice that cracked the smallest fraction. You're not supposed to sync with me. Not like this. Tanner leaned closer. But I am. Viral's claws tapped the tablet at her wrist. The door hissed open behind him. Return to your quarters, she said, not looking at him. This is no longer a standard trial. He didn't move right away. But when he finally did, he said, You're scared. Not of me. Of what this means. Still, she didn't respond. So he added one more thing before walking out. I'm not afraid, Viral. Maybe that's your problem. The door shut behind him with a soft hiss, and her hands trembled. Viral didn't leave the chamber for hours. She stood alone, staring at the overlapping scans still glowing on the wall, twin streams of electric thought patterns now slowly desynchronizing. But the damage had been done. That kind of neural sync wasn't just rare, it was impossible. At least, it had been. She downloaded the session log to her private archive, her tail swishing with restless tension. She should have flagged it, escalated the report to the Scientific Integrity Board, requested a protocol reevaluation. Instead, she encrypted the file and deleted the public log. She hadn't even removed her gloves yet. The synthetic mesh clung to her fingers like guilt. With a sharp breath, she tore them off and dropped them onto the bench, then leaned against the cold metal of the console with both palms. This isn't personal. But her pulse was still elevated. She didn't even need the monitor to confirm it anymore. Her body betrayed her. Every glance from him. Every word, even the careless, ridiculous ones, especially those, hit her harder than any data should. She'd spent a lifetime perfecting control. And now one man, one reckless, irritating, infuriating man, was shattering it with nothing but a smile and a heartbeat that synced with hers. This couldn't happen again. There had to be distance. A barrier. No more physical tests. No more live sessions. She needed space. Meanwhile, on the other side of the facility, Tanner lay on the too-soft bed in his fake forest suite, arms behind his head, staring at the ceiling's false sky. He wasn't smiling now. Something had happened in that room. Something he couldn't explain, but couldn't deny either. When she touched his chest, it felt like his whole nervous system had rerouted. He'd had a lot of women in his life. None like her. There was something different. Not just the fur. Not the ears. Not the tail. It was her voice. The precision of it. The way she looked at the world like it was a riddle to dissect, not experience. But for a moment, in that lab, she looked at him. Not through him. At him. And something had cracked. He rolled over, pulling the blanket tight, but he couldn't shake the image of her golden eyes locked on his, wide with disbelief, and something else. Desire? No. No way. She wasn't the type. Except. He wasn't imagining it. He couldn't be. Right. Tanner expected another summons the next morning. None came. No voice in his skull. No door sliding open. No sharp-eyed foxgirl with a clipboard and an attitude waiting to poke him like a lab rat. He paced. He kicked the wall once, lightly, and cussed when the metal didn't even dent. The projection showed waves crashing on a beach, complete with seagull sounds. It pissed him off more. By midday, he was shirtless, sweaty from doing push-ups just to burn time, and starving. When the voice finally returned, it wasn't hers. Subject 9 Kappa. Proceed to Biochamber 6. Follow the illuminated path. Non-compliance will trigger restraint protocol. Charming, he muttered, pulling his shirt back over his head and stepping into the hallway. The floor panels lit up one by one, guiding him not to the soft white corridors from before, but deeper, darker ones. Older maybe? Less polished. The lights flickered overhead. Pipes hissed softly from behind the walls. The door at the end opened without a sound. Viryl stood inside. But she was different. Gone was the sleek lab coat. She wore a sleeveless tunic-style uniform now, silver accents across the seams. Her tail hung low. Her ears were alert, but not stiff. The usual precision was replaced by something more guarded. Less clinical, more conflicted. New fashion choice? He asked. Sit. Still no small talk. There's nothing to talk about, she said. Could have fooled me, after last time. Viryl didn't respond. Tanner sat down on the central platform. The same diagnostic rig hung overhead. The same glow from scanners flared to life. But this time, she stayed behind glass. A wall of reinforced transparasteel separated them. Remote diagnostics. No contact. No proximity. No risk. Cowardice. So, he said, raising his voice so it'd carry through the speakers, we're doing the cold, sterile thing now? Her voice replied flatly over the intercom. We are re-establishing proper boundaries. There will be no further direct contact. Because I make your vitals jump? Because you make the data useless. He grinned. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. The machine scanned his pulse, respiration, and neural activity. Everything still reacted the moment her voice came through the speaker. She saw it. And hated it. Your metrics remain compromised, she said. Yours too, document. She didn't answer. Then something happened. A second scanner dropped down and passed over his temporal lobe. A sharp beep sounded. Cortical loop initialized. Stimulus response syncing. The screen blinked red. Warning, cortical mimicry detected. Tanner sat up straighter. That's new. Viryl's fingers hovered over the controls. She muted the audio instantly. On her side of the glass, her heart rate had tripled. She hadn't spoken. Hadn't touched him. But they were sinking again. Through nothing. And this time, it was stronger. She stepped back from the glass, visibly shaken. Tanner watched her. Still think this is just data? No response. Didn't think so. She turned away from the console, muttering something he couldn't hear. He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers through the glass. Whatever this is, you're feeling it too. And for the first time, she didn't deny it. Viryl stood in front of the inactive monitor long after the diagnostics concluded, arms crossed, tail low, the silence pressing in like vacuum. She'd shut off every sensor. But it didn't help. Her pulse was still elevated. Her palms still tingled from the memory of skin she wasn't supposed to touch. The chamber lights reflected faintly in the transparasteel wall, and behind that reflection, Tanner still sat, watching her. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed? Like a man who wasn't trying to win, just trying to be there. And that was worse. Because she was the one losing. The protocols were collapsing. The oversight systems hadn't flagged the sync events yet, but that wouldn't last. Neural mirroring above 60% was considered dangerous. At 70%, mandatory psychological reevaluation. At 80%, termination of cross-species proximity clearance. They were now reading 84%. She exhaled. Quiet. Controlled. Useless. Tanner's voice broke the silence. You're not reporting this, are you? She didn't answer. You scrubbed the last log too. She turned to face him through the glass. You shouldn't know that. He tilted his head, that irritating, self-satisfied grin softening just enough to feel like something deeper. You're smarter than they are, Viral. But you're not as cold as you pretend. That's dangerous talk, Subject 9 Kappa. You're not calling me that in your head. Viral's jaw tightened. Her golden eyes flared. You don't know what I call you. He stood, slow, controlled, stepping right up to the glass until his breath fogged the panel. I know how you look at me when you think I'm not watching. She moved to the console fast, keys tapping. Session terminated. The AI chimed. The door behind him hissed open. He didn't leave. She stared at the panel. Viral, he said softer now. Tell me I'm wrong. Just once. Nothing. Her claws curled over the edge of the console, gripping too tightly. Her ears twitched. Her tail flicked. Her whole body screamed with the tension of someone unraveling and refusing to admit it. I didn't want this, she said finally, barely a whisper. Neither did I. But now it's here. And we can't ignore it. Viral looked at him. No more contact. Too late for that. His palm touched the glass. Hers hovered above it on the other side, but didn't meet it. Just tell me, he said. Why me? She didn't have an answer. She turned, walked away, and this time, she didn't look back. The night passed without sleep. Viral's quarters were dark, soundproofed, and climate-controlled, yet none of it helped. She sat at her console, staring at the hollow display replaying the sync logs again and again. Every time his vitals rose, hers followed. Every time he laughed, her neural patterns surged. Even proximity data showed harmonic entrainment at ranges beyond predictive thresholds. She'd seen bonded Alterian pairs share less resonance. That was the problem. This wasn't just unprecedented. It was impossible. She'd spent 8 years working to disprove human integration theories. Built entire protocols around minimizing subjective influence. Now she was the anomaly. Her tail flicked in frustration as the door chimed. Access request, Director Alta's clearance 0. Her heart stopped. She stood, first smoothing instinctively, and opened the door. The director stepped inside. Tall. Pale gray fur. Violet uniform trim, elite oversight level. Her silver irises reflected light like lenses. Dr. Viral, she said, voice even. You've been flagged. Viral didn't flinch. For what reason? Sync pattern anomalies. Subject 9 Kappa's biometric logs triggered 3 internal alerts. Neural mimicry. Cortical mirroring. Unexplained compatibility spike. I've already isolated the variables. Viral lied. And yet you failed to report them. Silence. Alta's paced into the room, her movements predatory and graceful. There is concern you've compromised objectivity. My methods are sound. Your judgment isn't. You are too entangled, Doctor. Viral's claws curled at her sides. Then reassign me. No, the director said. You will finish the observation series. Publicly. With full oversight. We will see whether the subject's impact is quantifiable or emotional. You want a demonstration? Yes. No closed chambers. No unreviewed logs. Just science. Transparent and complete. And if she failed? Viral didn't need to ask. The director turned to leave but paused at the door. For your sake, Doctor. I hope he's not what your data suggests. Because if he is, he will not survive here. Viral's ears lowered. She didn't respond. Tanner didn't sleep either, not because he couldn't, but because he knew. He could feel it. Something had shifted. The way she'd walked away without a word, the delay in his next scheduled test, the quiet hum of surveillance systems that now felt a bit too loud. They were watching him. More than before. The silence wasn't emptiness, it was weight. heavy and sharp like a knife waiting to fall. So when the chime rang through his skull the next morning, he was already dressed. Subject 9 Kappa. Report to Integration Chamber Prime. Do not deviate. Observation in progress. That last part was new. He smirked. Guess we're making this a public show. The chamber was larger than the others. Circular. Bright. Tiered glass observation walls lined the upper ring, shadowy silhouettes already seated behind them. He recognized the shape of high-ranking coats, all neutral grays and trimmed authority. Judges. Bureaucrats. Scientists. And in the center, standing beside a fully outfitted diagnostic platform, was her. Virile. Every inch of her was composed. Her fur had been smoothed flat. Her ears stood tall. Her uniform was pristine, high-collared, sealed to the neck. Her tail didn't twitch. She looked like everything he wasn't: collected, disciplined, professional. And yet, her eyes betrayed her. Golden and molten and too focused on him. He stepped into the circle and gave a casual wave to the shadows above. Nice crowd. I feel special. Virile's voice rang out, cool and clipped. Subject 9 Kappa. Remove your upper garment and take position on the platform. Didn't even buy me dinner first, he muttered, tugging off his shirt and dropping it onto the floor. He sat. The platform hummed to life. Above, the screens lit with dual diagnostics, his and hers. Synapse activity. Pheromone emission. Cortical oscillation. Dozens of data streams, all public now. Session Protocol 6A initiated, the AI announced. Commencing exposure trial. Virile didn't look at him. She stood at the opposite end of the platform, fingers tapping out controls. Her voice echoed through the chamber, rehearsed and clinical. We will begin with basic eye contact calibration. Subject will maintain unbroken visual focus for 30 seconds. Tanner looked straight at her. She hesitated, just for a breath, then met his gaze. It was supposed to be sterile. But nothing about it felt clinical. The seconds ticked by. The silence in the room deepened. Every pair of eyes behind the glass watched the data streams climb. Heart rate, rising. Respiration, accelerated. Cortical sync. 77% and climbing. Virile's claws tensed. Tanner grinned faintly. Still think it's all in my head? She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Because the numbers were climbing faster than ever. And the whole room could see it. A low murmur passed through the tiered observation windows. Nothing loud, just enough to confirm what Tanner already knew. They saw it. Everyone. The sync rates. The vitals. The unspoken current that flared across the platform like an invisible thread tying him to her. The AI's voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. Phase 2, Proximity Engagement. Virile's tail flicked once, just once, and then she stepped forward. 3 measured paces. Closer. Close enough that her scent brushed against him again. Warm fur, crisp lab fabric, and something raw underneath. Her hand hovered near his chest but didn't touch. Subject will remain still, she said quietly. Her voice was different now, less command, more restraint. Tanner didn't move. Not because of the order. Because he didn't want to. The monitors flared. Bright red pulses. Proximity arousal spike, 181%. Sync ratio, 85.3%. Subject cross-stimulation confirmed. Behind the glass, the director leaned forward. Tanner watched Virile's eyes shift as she read the data. Her breath caught. So did his. Their pulses were feeding each other now, accelerating in unison. This isn't normal, she murmured. It's not supposed to be, he replied. That's the point. She didn't answer, but her hand lowered, until her fingers brushed his sternum. Just barely. He gasped. So did she. The platform lights spiked. The crowd above stirred again, urgent now. Something was wrong. Or maybe, too right. End the test, someone said over the comm. Viral didn't move. Neither did Tanner. The director's voice came sharp over the chamber audio. Doctor, you will cease this session immediately. But Viral's hand didn't lift. Her eyes were locked on his. And for the first time, she wasn't thinking. She was feeling. This changes everything, she whispered. Tanner reached up, slow and deliberate, and touched her wrist. And that was the spark. Sync ratio exceeded 90%. Alert, cortical fusion threshold breached. The alarms triggered. The lights turned crimson. Emergency protocols engaged. Above, scientists stood. Shouted. The director vanished from her chair. But down below, in the center of the chaos, neither of them moved. Their hands stayed locked. Eyes fixed. And even with every system screaming, every authority racing to intervene, they didn't let go. Security flooded the perimeter. Glass doors slammed shut over exits. Automated drones dropped from recessed ceiling ports, each armed with tranquilizer rounds and restraint harnesses. The observation chamber had gone from an arena of analysis to a war room in under 10 seconds. Tanner didn't flinch. Not when the alarms flared. Not when the director's voice barked through the system again. Not even when the drones aimed at his head. But Viral moved. She stepped between him and the drones, her arms spread, tail raised in a defensive arc. Stand down, she barked. Full override. Directive Q7. I claim authority under Sovereign Sync Protection Clause. There was a beat of silence. Then the system voice responded coldly. Directive Q7 not recognized. Authority invalidated by Sync Breach Protocol. The drones whirred louder. She didn't budge. Tanner, still seated on the platform, leaned in slightly. You're gonna get shot protecting me? I'm going to get shot protecting my data. She snapped, not turning. Nice lie, he said quietly. She didn't deny it. Another voice echoed from above. Not system generated. Not calm. It was the director. Viral, she said sharply. You are relieved. Stand down and exit the chamber. Viral's tail swayed slowly behind her. I am the only qualified controller capable of maintaining sync stability above 90%. You terminate me, you lose the subject. We don't need the subject, the director hissed. That was when Tanner stood. He stepped around Viral and looked straight up at the windowed wall. His bare chest rose with each breath, but his face was calm. You're scared of what this means, he called. You should be. Shut him down, the director snapped. One drone fired. Viral yanked Tanner sideways, the dart striking the floor where his foot had been. Another launched. She spun, claws flashing, and tore the restraint rig clean off its mount midair. Tanner ducked behind the platform. You were hiding claws like that this whole time? They're not for subjects, she growled. I'm honored. More drones dropped. More shouting. A panel on the far wall opened with a hiss. Security team inbound. Viral glanced at Tanner, then at the diagnostic console. And she made a decision. She moved fast. Fingers flying across the panel. Her wristband flashed red, then purple, an emergency frequency he didn't recognize. What are you doing? He asked. I'm initiating failsafe lockdown, she said. Internal isolation. 1 chamber. 2 people. No observers. Sounds cozy. She didn't smile. She just hit enter. The floor buckled. Walls dropped from the ceiling with a violent thunk, encasing them in thick alloy partitions. The lights shifted to emergency blue. Drones were locked out. External comms cut. And suddenly, it was just the two of them again. The walls sealed tight, thick and soundless. The hum of surveillance disappeared, replaced by something heavier, silence. Not sterile. Not empty. Alive. Tanner's breath still came fast, adrenaline dragging its claws through his bloodstream. He looked around the chamber. No exits, no vents, no drones. Just matte steel walls and a faint glow from recessed lights above. You just locked us in, he said. Yes, Viral replied, fingers still poised above the console. Her voice had dropped an octave, lower, calmer, but less composed. The chamber is off-grid. No feeds. No access. No escape either. We needed space, she said simply. He stepped toward her. You're risking your career. She didn't answer. So he asked again, softer this time. Why? Finally, she turned. Slowly. Her golden eyes met his, and this time she didn't hide behind protocol or control. Her ears tilted back, tail still, shoulders tense. Because I couldn't let them end it. Tanner stepped closer. You mean the sink? I mean you. That landed like a thunderclap. She continued slowly, carefully, like every word was against her training. I've spent years conditioning myself to resist influence. Human contact. Cross-species attachment. Emotional variance. And then I showed up, he said, voice barely a breath. And ruined it all, she whispered. Tanner moved in. No more jokes. No more jabs. Just proximity. Real. Unfiltered. I don't know what this is, he said. But I know what it's not. It's not fake. It's not clinical. It's not just data. She nodded once. It's dangerous. But you don't want to run from it anymore. No. Tanner's hand hovered near her face, not touching, just waiting. Her voice broke, barely audible. Please. He didn't hesitate. His fingers brushed the side of her jaw, warm and soft under the velvet of her orange fur. She didn't flinch. Didn't retreat. Instead, she leaned into it. The moment cracked open. Her breath hitched. His heartbeat surged. The sink, if it could be measured now, would have broken every scale they had. Viral leaned forward, forehead against his. We're out of time, she whispered. Then stop wasting it, he said. And this time, when he kissed her, she didn't resist. She melted. The kiss wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was years of discipline ripped away in a single breath. Viral pressed into him like a storm finally allowed to break. Her hands slid up his bare chest, claws grazing his shoulders, not to wound, but to hold. To feel. Tanner responded just as fiercely. His hands found her waist, the curve of it familiar now beneath the synthetic fabric. He felt her fur warm under his palms, alive with every breath, every shift. Her tail brushed his leg as it wrapped instinctively, possessively. They didn't come up for air for a long time. When they finally pulled apart, neither spoke. Not yet. They just stared, eyes wild, lips parted, both of them trying to process what they'd just allowed. What they'd just chosen. Tanner was the first to breathe again. Well, he said, voice hoarse. So much for boundaries. Viral didn't laugh. But her eyes softened. They were already broken. You okay? No, she whispered. But I don't care anymore. He ran his thumb along the line of her jaw. So what happens now? She turned, stepping back to the console, though her hands trembled as they hovered over the keys. Now? I purge the emergency lockdown timer. We buy time. Then, we disappear. Disappear? There's a research outpost. Remote. Off-grid. I have pre-clearance for solo psychological observation. I can flag it for long-term sync study. He crossed his arms, watching her. You're planning to steal me. Her ears twitched. Technically, yes. Hot. She shot him a withering look, but her tail curled slightly at the end. I'll have to falsify transfer logs, she said. Create a narrative that justifies isolation. Say you became volatile. Unstable. That I needed to conduct deep pattern recalibration. And how much of that's true? Her gaze met his. Enough to be believable. Silence returned, but not the cold kind. The kind that happens when two people know they've already passed the point of return. I meant it, he said suddenly. She blinked. Meant what? That I'd rather be a fugitive with you then forget what this feels like. Viral stepped toward him again. Close enough to touch. Then we run, she said. He nodded. Together. Her fingers found his again. Always. The console chimed softly. An alert from the outer walls. External override attempt detected. System breach in 90 seconds. Guess the audience wants back in, Tanner muttered. Viral's eyes burned gold. Then let's be gone before they get the door open. Viral moved like she was born for crisis. She dropped to one knee beside the maintenance panel behind the platform, claws flashing over the emergency seal. The wall hissed open, revealing a narrow crawl space of cables and damp air. Tanner peered in. That's your escape plan? Primary access tunnel, she said, already slinging a field satchel across her shoulder. It bypasses all surface-level surveillance nodes. Leads directly to Dock Epsilon. Which is where I've hidden a transport pod. He stared. She met his gaze. You coming or not? He cracked a grin. After you, Hotwire Queen. They crawled for almost 10 minutes through the narrow shaft, low light pulsing from conduits along the walls. The air grew warmer. Static clung to their skin. Every vibration from the main corridors overhead felt like a threat. Think they know where we're headed? He asked. They suspect. But not many know the Epsilon route still functions. You ever do this before? Not with company. They reached a vertical junction. Viral climbed first, tail coiled tight to avoid snagging. When Tanner emerged behind her, panting, he found her already crouched beside a sleek black access panel marked with Alterian glyphs. She tapped it. It scanned her hand. Clearance accepted. One pod active. The door slid open. Inside, a 2-passenger vessel, matte finish, minimal instrumentation. More like a coffin with thrusters than a shuttle. Tanner raised a brow. This your idea of a romantic getaway? No AI. No tracking. No logs. She turned to him. That's the point. They boarded. She sat at the pilot's helm. He dropped into the co-seat beside her, close enough that their arms touched. Coordinates? The system asked. Viral leaned in and whispered a sequence. The engine hummed to life. The walls of the hangar began to slide open. And then, incoming signal, override code, Omega-1. Shit, Viral hissed. They've found us. Tanner's hands gripped the edges of the console. How bad is Omega-1? Emergency lockout, she said. 30 seconds and they can fry the pod. Can you stop it? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at him. Just looked. Like she was memorizing his face. Then she said, I can't stop it, but I can send us first. She slammed the launch key. The pod roared forward, the hangar vanishing behind them in a blur of smoke and flashing red. Acceleration threw them back against the seats. Systems screamed. Turbulence hit like a wave. And then, silence. Stars. Freedom. Tanner exhaled slowly. So, now what? Viral looked at him. Her fur glowed softly under the emergency light. Now we disappear. He reached over, took her hand. Together, he said again. She squeezed it back. Always. The stars outside the pod's viewport shimmered like cold fire, distant, silent, eternal. Tanner watched them as the emergency autopilot engaged, guiding their vessel toward a region of space marked only as a biological dead zone on most star charts. He turned toward her. Viral was quiet, her posture finally relaxed, tail draped loosely over her lap. The adrenaline had faded, but her eyes still burned with thought. Not fear. Not regret. Resolve. I didn't think you'd actually do it, he said. Neither did I, she replied softly. The cabin was dim. The pod had no long-range communication arrays. No connection to the grid. It was a ghost ship, perfect for two people who no longer existed. Tell me you have a plan, Tanner said. I do. But it's not safe. I didn't sign up for safe. You didn't sign up at all. He smirked. Exactly. She reached toward the overhead panel and flicked on a local atmosphere filter. The air shifted, cooler, cleaner, flavored faintly with whatever neutralizing compound the pod used for scent stabilization. It didn't help. He could still smell her. Wild. Warm. Real. You said something before we left, he said suddenly. Something about taking me to an outpost? She nodded. It's abandoned. Was used for neural isolation testing 5 cycles ago. I filed a claim for personal study use last year. No one ever approved it. But no one denied it either. So we squat. We survive. He looked at her. And what then? Viral was quiet for a long moment. Her claws tapped absently against the side of her leg. Then, I document the sink, she said. Privately. Not for oversight. Not for advancement. Just for the truth. Tanner leaned back. You're still a scientist even now, huh? I have to be. You don't. She met his gaze. I do. Because if I'm not, then all of this. Everything we sacrificed, it becomes chaos. I need to prove it meant something. He leaned in. It already does. Her ears lowered subtly. Her shoulders softened. He didn't press her further. He just reached over, pulled the emergency blanket from under the seat, and offered her half. They wrapped it around their shoulders, side by side, the hum of the engines lulling them into a quiet that was no longer cold. For the first time in days, maybe longer. They both slept. And somewhere behind them, deep in the void they'd escaped, an alert blinked silently in a darkened office on a moon they would never return to. Subject 9 Kappa, no longer tracked. The pod emerged from lightless drift 7 hours later, cutting through the final cloud of micro-debris with a low rumble. Ahead, the outpost appeared like a scar on the skin of an otherwise pristine moon, metal and stone fused awkwardly, long-abandoned solar collectors half-collapsed under time and erosion. Viral stirred first. She sat up, blinking once, then checked the console. Landing protocols stable, atmospheric readings acceptable, no sign of surveillance drones. Tanner cracked one eye open. We dead yet? Not yet. He stretched under the emergency blanket. Damn. Was kind of hoping to wake up and find it was a dream. She didn't smile. But her voice softened. You're still here. The pod touched down with a gentle hiss. Magnetic locks engaged. Viral stood first, pulling on a light jacket. Her tail flicked back and forth as she activated the hatch release. We'll have to seal the eastern wall and reroute power from the secondary array. Translation? Put your back into it, human. The air outside was cold, dry, sharp with the scent of rusted alloy and soil that hadn't known wind in years. The outpost's main chamber groaned as the inner doors opened. Lights flickered to life, emergency red then fading to soft white. Tanner followed her inside. It was bigger than he expected. One central room. 2 smaller chambers on either side. A medical bench. A Hydra station. Sparse furniture still intact. No AI cores. No embedded trackers. Viral set her bag down and moved to the central console, fingers moving with muscle memory. Still works, she said under her breath. Tanner moved to the viewport. It showed the barren gray landscape stretching into low hills. No cities. No satellites. You've really done this before? He asked. Prepared for it, she replied. Never had a reason until now. He turned. You built this for someone else? No, she said, pausing. I built it in case I ever became someone else. That landed heavier than he expected. Tanner looked around again. The silence felt different here. Not sterile. Not mechanical. Just quiet. Real. He stepped toward her. So what do we do now? Viral looked up from the console. Now we live. Carefully. You ever done that before? She tilted her head, ears twitching. No. Tanner grinned. Then let's figure it out. They spent the rest of the day securing the outpost. Viral led the way, patching old sealants, rerouting power conduits, and initializing localized gravity stabilizers. Tanner, less graceful but just as stubborn, carried supplies, mounted backup filtration units, and cursed loudly every time a pipe burst. By sunset, if you could call it that on a moon with no sun, they'd managed to get one of the 2 sleeping chambers fully operational. Heat, pressure, lighting. Even a functioning sanitation unit. Tanner dropped onto the bedroll with a loud sigh. Remind me again why I'm the one carrying everything while you tap a few buttons and pretend to be busy. Because you're stronger, she said. Liar. Because I outrank you? There it is. Viral was in the corner, standing with her arms crossed, tail curling idly. She wasn't watching him, exactly, but she wasn't not watching him either. Tanner lay back and looked at the ceiling. We're really out here, huh? Like this is it? Yes. No escape plan. No fake cover. No orders to pull us back. She nodded slowly. He sat up again. You scared? She didn't answer right away. A little. Good, he said. Me too. He stood and crossed the room until they were inches apart. Her orange fur caught the low light again, glowing softly. Her eyes flicked up to meet his. I was supposed to be a nobody, Tanner said. You were supposed to be untouchable. And yet here we are. She murmured. His fingers brushed her arm. You regret it? She hesitated. Then shook her head. No. But I don't understand it yet. You don't need to. I do. Because if I don't, I'll lose myself to it. He leaned closer, voice low. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Her tail wrapped lightly around his calf, unconscious, instinctive. She didn't pull it back. I'd never synced with anyone before, she said. Not like this. Not even with my own kind. Tanner touched her cheek gently, his thumb tracing under her eye. Then maybe we stop trying to explain it, and just let it be real. She exhaled slowly. And didn't pull away. That night, they didn't speak much. They shared the same bedroll, side by side. No guards. No walls. No tests. Just 2 pulses beating in time. Finally, freely. Viral woke before the chamber lights cycled on. Her senses, sharper than Tanner's, registered his breathing first, slow, deep, steady. His warmth pressed against her back, an unfamiliar weight that somehow didn't feel intrusive. It felt grounding. She lay there for a while, unmoving. Listening. His heart had a rhythm she'd memorized without meaning to. It wasn't perfectly steady, human physiology never was, but it was constant in a way nothing else in her life had ever been. When she finally rose, her movement was gentle, tail coiling to avoid brushing his legs. Tanner stirred, blinked, and stretched with a groan. MMPH. You always disgraceful in the morning? Only when someone doesn't snore. I don't snore. You absolutely do. She handed him a nutrition pack from the console and bit into one of her own. It tasted like chalk and stale citrus, typical emergency rations, but neither of them complained. They sat by the viewport as the pale light from the moon's distant star filtered in. It wasn't beautiful, not really. But it was theirs. You think anyone's looking for us? Tanner asked between bites. Viral didn't answer right away. Not openly. We embarrassed them. They'll bury it before they admit it. And the director? She'll wait, Viral said. Then she'll send someone when she thinks we're vulnerable. Let her. She looked at him. You sound confident. I am. You got claws. I've got nothing to lose. Together, that's something. She huffed softly. Not quite a laugh, but close. Your logic is primitive. Your logic is repressed. This time she did laugh. Quiet. Low. Her ears lowered playfully. He smiled, studying her. That's the first time I've heard you laugh. Don't get used to it. I'm going to. Silence settled again, but this one was easy. Familiar. They didn't have to fill it. When they finished eating, she stood and extended a hand. Come on. Where? I need your help syncing the external relay. If I don't realign the satellite dish manually, we can't download atmosphere maps. Tanner raised a brow. That a real task, or you just making up chores to keep me close? Does it matter? Nope. He took her hand. And outside they went, into the windless stillness of a moon no one remembered. Together. The outpost's surface was even quieter than the chambers inside. No wind, no wildlife, not even the sound of shifting rocks. Just the faint crunch of their boots against gritty soil, and the high-pitched ping of cooling metal as the sun's weak rays touched the landing struts. Tanner followed Viral across the plateau, shielding his eyes from the sharp, pale glare. You sure this dish even works? He asked, gesturing at the rusted skeleton of the relay tower ahead. Structurally? Yes. Functionally? We'll see. Great. Love working with a 50% success rate. Statistically, that's higher than most of your decisions. He snorted, climbing the ladder behind her. The dish had once rotated on an automated axis, but now it was frozen in place, tilted halfway toward the horizon like a forgotten sentinel. Viral pulled a compact toolkit from her belt. Hold this, she said, handing him a fusion driver. Tanner looked it over. Remind me again why you're the scientist but I'm the one doing the repairs. Because you like using your hands? Fair. She crouched beside the access panel and pried it open. Dust exploded outward in a choking puff. Tanner gagged. That tastes like burned rubber and regret. Get used to it. This whole place is built on regret. She set to work, claws precise and fast, teeth gritted as she scraped corroded wiring from the panel's interior. Tanner watched her work. Every movement, every flick of her tail, the set of her shoulders, it was all controlled, practiced. But underneath it, he sensed something shifting. You okay? He asked. I'm focused. That's not what I asked? She didn't look up. The last time I used this tower, I was alone. Preparing for a life I never thought I'd need. Preparing for exile. And now? Now. I'm not alone. That changes everything. He crouched beside her, setting down the driver. It's not exile when you're with someone who chose to be here. She paused. Her golden eyes finally met his. And for a second, just 1 second, her walls dropped again. Not because she was weak, but because she was safe. Thank you, she said quietly. He bumped her shoulder with his. Anytime, Fox girl. She rolled her eyes but didn't correct him. A moment later, the dish hummed. Lights blinked. Viral straightened. It's working. Tanner grinned. So what now? We send a postcard? No, she said. Now we listen. Back inside the outpost, the console buzzed to life, low and persistent. The dish had reconnected to a forgotten corner of the interstellar relay network. Not a full signal, not enough to transmit, but enough to receive. Viral sat cross-legged in front of the console, fingers flicking through encryption logs. The screen displayed flickers of data, partial headers, corrupted timestamps, ancient routing protocols. Tanner leaned over her shoulder. That look like a threat? No, she said. Just echoes. Ghosts from abandoned channels. He squinted. Any from the research facility? Not yet. She hesitated, then added, but something's pinging from beyond the perimeter zone. Meaning? Meaning someone knows we're alive. He frowned. You think the director's tracking us? She'd rather pretend we never existed. But someone else might be curious. Someone less political. More scientific. Tanner tilted his head. So, a fan club? A threat, she said simply. The console beeped. A distorted voice crackled from the speakers. No full words, just fragments. Stable sync, unauthorized, integration anomaly. 9K. Viral froze. Tanner heard it too. That was your file name. The one they gave me. She slowly muted the feed. They're not broadcasting. They're hunting. His hand found hers on the console. We'll handle it. She didn't pull away. They'll come eventually, she said. With trackers. Agents. Scientists too scared to let this exist. Then we make sure it does anyway. She looked at him. His eyes were calm. Steady. True. I've read hundreds of compatibility reports, she said. None showed sync ratios like ours. Not even bonded Alterian pairs. You think we're special? No, she whispered. I think we're impossible. Then let's be impossible together. Her tail slid around his ankle without her realizing. He smiled. That mean yes? It means I'm not leaving. Good, he said. Because neither am I. The screen dimmed. The threat faded back into silence. And together, side by side in a moonlit chamber of dust and stolen data, they rewrote everything the universe thought it knew about love. The outpost had grown quiet again. Too quiet. Tanner adjusted the external sensor relay, now wired directly into the console. It pinged twice every hour, listening for signals, any sign of proximity, of scans of them. But none came. At least, not yet. Viral spent more time at the central desk now, not running tests, but building something new, a combined log. Not for the scientific board. Not for authority. But for them. What's that one? Tanner asked, watching her drag a waveform onto the hollow display. Your emotional biometrics the first time I touched you. Sounds kinky. It was confusing, she said, smirking slightly. They sat across from each other now, a long strand of wire coiled between them from the half-repaired comm unit. The silence wasn't tense anymore. It was routine. I didn't think I'd ever miss structure, Viral said. But this is better. Tanner looked up from his half-wired tool. Because there's no rules? No. Because the only rule is honesty now. He leaned in. Then be honest. Do you think we're still sinking? She didn't even need to check the monitor. Yes. Every time I breathe near you. That's hot. It's destabilizing. Still hot. She rolled her eyes, tail flicking, but not annoyed. Affectionate. Then the console lit up. Bright. Urgent. Not just a scan. A ping. And then a name. Dr. Viral, target location confirmed. Her blood ran cold. Tanner stood. How bad? She swallowed hard. They've found us. Then we run. She didn't answer immediately. Her hand hovered above the console. No, she said. We send it. All of it. He blinked. What? The sync data. The proof. The logs. If they erase us, fine. But they won't erase what we are. Not anymore. Tanner walked around the desk, placed a hand on her shoulder. You sure? Viral turned to him. Her eyes were wide, but clear. Steady. I want the universe to know that once a human and a Vulpine broke the math. He grinned. Then let's break it loud. Tanner watched as Viral's claws danced across the console. Lines of code scrolled faster than he could follow. Encrypted data packets, layered protocol masks, spoofed routing points. She was building a transmission that couldn't be ignored and couldn't be traced. Not easily. You're sure this will reach the networks? He asked, standing behind her. I'm sending it to 3 places, she replied. A civilian science collective on Elderos, a rebel research hub near the Ion Divide, and Earth. Earth? He repeated. If anyone understands what it means to fight for connection across lines that were never meant to cross, it's your people. Tanner stared at her, at the tension in her jaw, the flare of determination in her golden eyes. You're not just doing this for us, he said. I'm doing it because they'll try to rewrite it otherwise. They'll turn us into a footnote. A malfunction. An error. Her voice shook now, just a little. I won't let that happen. He placed a hand on her back, warm and solid. Then don't. She pressed one final command into the console. The screen flashed. Transmission sent. There was no dramatic fanfare. No cinematic upload bar. Just a short beep and a confirmation log. Their story, biometrics, video logs, sync graphs, emotional recordings, and voice transcripts, was gone from the terminal. But out there now. Forever. They'll come faster now, she whispered. Let them, Tanner said. We gave them everything. We don't need to prove anything else. She turned to him. Slowly. Something cracked in her chest, not fear, not anxiety. Relief. They'll call us traitors, she murmured. They'll call us liars. Or worse. He stepped closer. But the ones who matter? They'll call it what it is. What's that? He leaned his forehead to hers. Truth. And somewhere in the void between stars, that truth raced faster than any patrol ship, carried on signal waves and encrypted whispers, an undeniable message embedded with impossible evidence. They loved each other. And the data proved it. The signal was gone. Sent. Too late to stop. Too true to erase. Viral stood at the console, hands still on the edge, as if bracing herself against the weight of what she'd just done. Tanner stood beside her, silent, shoulder against hers. Outside, the windless silence of the moon remained unchanged. Inside, everything had. She turned to him. They'll send ships. I know. They'll skin this outpost. Jam our channels. Maybe wipe it all. Let them try. They'll try to take you. He looked her dead in the eyes. They won't. And then, a soft chime. Not an alarm. A signal. From inside the outpost. Unidentified vessel, entering orbital range. Viral's blood ran cold. They're here. Tanner took her hand. Then let's greet them. The ship was matte black, unmarked, sleek. Government, likely, but not official. Too quiet for that. It descended without protocol, without warning. It landed on the far ridge, kicking dust into the thin air. No guns came out. No soldiers marched forward. Just one figure, tall, cloaked, walking slowly toward the outpost. Viral and Tanner waited at the hatch. She gripped his hand tighter than she meant to. If this goes bad, we go bad together. The door opened. The figure stopped at 10 paces. Then lowered its hood. It was an older woman. Slate gray fur, violet eyes, long coat with silver threads at the cuffs. Viral knew her instantly. Counselor Nyssa, she breathed. Nyssa inclined her head. Dr. Viral. Subject 9 Kappa. Tanner smirked. Still calling me that, huh? Nyssa ignored him. Your transmission was intercepted. Deliberately. I let it spread. Viral blinked. You let it? I was waiting for proof. Now I have it. So do others. Silence. Then Nyssa said quietly, You're not fugitives anymore. Tanner frowned. You're not here to arrest us? No, she said. I'm here to offer you something else. They sat inside the outpost, steam rising from 2 shared mugs of rehydrated tea. Nyssa spoke calmly. Some of the high board wants your heads. Others see what I see, evidence of something evolution never accounted for. Viral was silent, tail curled tightly around one leg. Nyssa continued. You'll never be safe in populated systems. But we can designate this region as a black archive zone. Unmonitored. Uninterrupted. A cage, Tanner said. A sanctuary, Nyssa corrected. No patrols. No interference. But you don't leave. Viral looked at him. We stay ghosts. You stay free. They didn't speak for a long time. Then Viral reached across the table, placed her hand over his. We've already proven what needed proving, she said. Tanner looked at her. Then smiled. Home's where you are. Not the galaxy. He turned to Nyssa. We'll stay. Nyssa rose. Then I'll ensure no one else comes. Weeks passed. No ships. No signals. Just them. They built gardens from hydro crates, rewired the power grid, painted the walls. Tanner carved her a chair from local mineral bark. Viral rebuilt the old scanner just to watch the stars shift. They slept in the same bed, spoke softly, laughed loudly. Every once in a while, the sink would spike, still. Even with no probes, no tests. Just a glance. A breath. It meant something. Everything. And every time he reached for her, she was there. And every time she trembled, he held her until it passed. One day, Viral stood on the ridge overlooking the basin, holding a single data pad. "What's that?" Tanner asked, stepping beside her. "Our story," she said. "Didn't we already send that? This is for later. In case something happens. If someone finds this place. I want them to know what it meant." Tanner took the pad from her gently. "What do you call it?" She looked at him, eyes glowing gold in the moonlight. "Sink." Years passed. The stars didn't change. But they did. He grew grayer at the temples. She learned to laugh with her eyes. Their sink, though unmeasured, never faded. One night, as they lay together under the domed ceiling of the outpost, Tanner whispered, "Still think I was a statistical anomaly?" Viral smiled, pressed her lips to his temple, and whispered back, "No. You were the one thing the data never saw coming." Outside, the relay tower still blinked faintly. And in the quiet, wild moon they called home. Two impossible lives kept beating. Together.